Welcome back to Edible York. We've been going and planting some seeds so far, and we've done a couple of weeks of planting seeds. And maybe you saw last week when we were planting edible flowers how some of the earlier seeds, the tomato seeds and peppers and what else have we got? Peas and broad beans have been going. So we're going to take a look at those, and we're also going to pot on some of the tomatoes that are growing a bit too close together and getting a little bit, they need a little bit more space. So I'll start with the set of tomatoes that we took a look at. So those are the Ildi tomatoes that I planted 4 to a little module there. Now, the peppers that we planted, no sign of those ones yet, but some yellow peppers that I planted at the same time, those are just starting to poke up. So you can see those, a slightly different sort of shape to the tomatoes, but they definitely take a little bit longer than tomatoes to sort of burst into life. So if your peppers are still really small, that's entirely normal. Both peppers and aubergines, I find, tend to be slightly slower to start off. So your peppers might look that sort of size. I've got some yellow peppers there. And my tomatoes are definitely ready to move on. But let's just check in with some of the other bits and pieces. So here are our mixed salad leaves. So they've done amazingly well. They started popping up within sort of 4 or 5 days, and those are doing very well now. I've got some rocket to pot on as well. And if we have a look over here, then we can see some of the larger seeds that we were planting to start off with. And I'll just sort of angle the camera down so you can see those. So we've got at the front here, we've got some of the courgettes that have started growing. So they're quite big now. I potted those on a few days ago. My cucumber has done really well. So we've got quite a nice little cucumber there. And the ones I'm quite proud of are some of my broad beans at the back there now. Just hold these up so that we can see them a little bit better. But some of them sort of race away and they're already poking up quite nicely. Some of the others are only just sort of poking their heads through. So they are variable, but that's after kind of a week or 2 weeks, those are going to look like that for you. And one of the best ones I'll save till last, we planted some Mange tout Shiraz sugar snap peas 2 weeks ago now. So those are doing amazingly well. So those will need to go into a bigger pot as well, or I might plant those out out in my garden directly. But after a week, the peas sort of start off looking like that. So we've got some little seedlings poking up, and then after a week, another week they've gone on to that. So that's sort of week 1, and then that one's week 2. So they're doing really well. Now, both peas and broad beans are both fairly hardy. So I'm probably going to plant those outside fairly soon. I'm taking them outside sort of during the day, but if it looks like it might be very cold overnight, like a frost or something, I'll bring them back in. So that's called hardening off, where you let them acclimatise to what the temperature's really like outside rather than inside our houses. So I'm hardening off those for 2 or 3 days just so that they're ready, and then I can put them in the ground or in a big pot or in a raised bed outside, and those will grow away really happily. Things like the tomatoes, I'm not going to trust those outside probably until late April, possibly early May, depending on how warm it is, because they definitely won't like frosts. So I'm going to pot those into slightly bigger pots, but not into their final position today. And the final one to show you, there's one of my little cucumber seedlings coming up. But the final one to show you is a week after we planted some of our edible flowers. Those are just starting to come up. So the marigolds are doing really well there. Pansy, I think I might have one pansy seed just starting to show its face there, but it's really hard to see. But the marigolds are popping up already within a week. So those are doing really well as well. So not doing too bad here. We've got a fair few things that are growing quite well. I'm going to move that tray out of the way for a second. And we're going to concentrate on the idea of potting up some of our seedlings that are getting a little bit crowded now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you with these Ildi tomato seeds that we planted a couple of weeks ago. And I'm going to pop them on into sort of these next size up pots. If you want to pop them into something bigger, if you've got lots of space in your on your windowsill still, that's great as well. I'm going for something that I know I can fit on my windowsill. I'm getting a little bit carried away here, so I've got quite a lot of crowding going on. But they're currently sort of 4 tomato seeds to a sort of 4 centimetre little module there. So that's gonna start stunting their growth if we don't start putting them into their own bit of space. So what I need to be able to get these seedlings out nicely is either one of these little tools or a teaspoon. Works well. If you can nominate an old sort of battered teaspoon to be a gardening teaspoon, that might work as well. Because we just want to ease these seedlings out of this pot here and then put them into one of these. Now, I've already got some soil in there at the moment. I'm just going to squish it down a little bit. And I'm also going to water that. So we're going to disturb the roots of these tomato seedlings as we move them on from a little seedling tray like that to a larger pot. And for this reason, some people sort of prefer to put them in pots to start off with straight away so they don't have to move them. But I don't have that much space. So I tend to grow them in these little pots and then move them on. And it doesn't seem to worry them too much. They'll catch up again, much better than being sort of crammed into too small a space. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and ease that soil out of there. So I'll squeeze the pot a bit to start with, and then I'm just going to ease that sort of set of tomatoes out of there. Okay, so I've got my little set of 4 there that I need to split up, and we're just going to tease them apart. So I'm just going to sort of split them, just gently split the soil there, and then split each of these 2, and try and keep the soil around the roots if we can. Some people say lift them up by the leaves. Definitely don't squish the stem, but these ones are coming away in the soil quite nicely, so I'm just lifting them by the lump of soil. So what I want to do with that little baby is go make a bit of a hole in my pot, and then I'm just going to pop that tomato seedling in the little bit of a hole there. Now, tomato seedlings, if you plant them quite deep, they'll actually send out even more roots from the stem. So it doesn't matter if yours have actually grown quite long and they're a little bit stringy. So just plant them so that when you fill that pot up with soil, they're nicely supported. It doesn't matter if you plant them slightly deeper than they were in the seedling tray. So mine's there, it's got about 2 centimetres of stem, and then the leaves and the soil sort of supporting it so that it's standing upright. So I can do those with a couple more of these. Let's see whether we can angle it down. So where I can put the next little lot, I can put him into that little hole, press the roots down a little bit, and then again grab a little bit of soil to support around the stem and pop those in there. So I've just got the last two, and again I'm just going to make a little hole, pop that one in, little hole, pop that one in. So I've got my 4 seedlings there, just top each of those up with a little bit of soil to hold those stems nice and secure. And if we have disturbed the roots, sometimes the soil falls off and you just get a little bunch of roots. That's fine, but make the hole nice and big and then just sort of gently put it in there. We don't want to be crushing the roots or anything. And if we've just planted some tomatoes on, you want to give them a nice big water, yeah, because those roots will need a little bit of moisture to just keep them happy. Yeah, so planted on a few of those. I can go and do the rest of those after the video. So we've got 4 nice little tomato plants in their own little pots there, and they'll happily grow on in there for another 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so. What we're looking for when we're thinking, oh, maybe it's getting too big for that pot, is just have a look underneath, because once the tomato is growing away nicely, what we don't want is all of the roots coming out of the bottom here, and that kind of indicates that it's starting to get pot bound and it wants a bigger pot, please. So once the roots start showing at the bottom of the pot, then we definitely need to pop them on into a new bigger pot, maybe into our final grow bag or large pot outside against a sunny wall. Okay, so those are our tomato seedlings, nice and happy. I've done something similar for my little courgette plants here. So I've potted each one of those into its own pot so that those aren't crowded as well. Remember to label them so you know which one's which. And also similarly for one of our courgettes there. So the previous one was a cucumber. These courgettes are going to grow fairly big fairly quickly. So this one was potted on, I think about 3 or 4 days ago from that little butter tub that we made. So I think that's one of our original ones from 2 weeks ago. I potted that on three days ago because it was looking like it was getting a little bit big for that butter tub. So again, with all of these, keep an eye on whether it's growing out of the bottom of the pot. Give it 2 or 3 weeks in there, then it'll definitely need to go out. Now, courgettes and outdoor cucumbers, so most of the seeds we're sending out can go outside. These can probably go out sort of mid to late April. So week 3, week 4 in April, these will probably be okay outside, but do keep an eye out on the weather. If it looks like there's going to be lots of frost, then hold off, don't put them outside. Or if you have put them outside in a pot, just bring them inside the front door while it's frosty outside and put it straight back out again the next morning and it will be fine. Okay. So those were our tomatoes and cucumbers. So they're potting on quite nicely. The other thing I wanted to just show you quickly this morning is some of our lettuce and what we can do with lettuce and rocket and mixed salad leaves. So what I've got for these is I've got a green planter like that, and I've part filled it with soil, and we're going to put, I've actually mixed up some of my compost from my tomato tubs last year to use on the lettuce tubs, and then I've put some fresh compost in with that, mixed in a bit of soil so that it's a nice mixture and it retains some water. It's not just very fine compost. Top it up with some fresh stuff, or if you have got your own compost heap, compost that comes out of the bottom of there is lovely and rich and has loads of nutrients. So if you put 2 or 3 handfuls in some old compost, that is great. That really sparks it up again and it gets it ready for the new growing season. So I've put the compost in here so far. I've actually left this a little bit low because I don't want the seedlings to be blown in the wind outside. It's still a little bit windy out there, but I'm going to put these seedlings into this planter now. So what we want to do really with this one is, if you've got something like these cut and come again salad, you can sprinkle some new salad on here as new salad seed on the soil as well. I'm going to take these seedlings that I've already got in my little hummus tub, and I'm just going to squeeze those around the side and around the bottom to tip those out. And you'll see what I was meaning about they're starting to the roots are starting to sort of creep out of the holes at the bottom of the pot. So these are definitely ready to go into some more soil. They're expanding out their roots to take on the world. So I'm actually going to split these into 2 lots. I'm just going to break it down the middle there, tease those leaves apart, just gently, so that those 2 sets can grow away nicely. And then I'm just going to make a little hole about the same depth as their current pot into the soil here, and put my sort of set of cut and come again lettuce in there. Spreading them out slightly, we can pile up a little bit more soil to support those leaves, and again a little bit further away so they've got room to kind of grow on. I'm just going to squish those in there. Yeah. So I've ended up with my seedlings in a couple of little slots, sort of that far apart in the soil, so that they can sort of carry on growing. They've got a bit more room for all of their roots, and in about a week they're probably going to have grown quite nicely. I can start cutting those and having some of those on my sandwiches or whatever. So the all important, if we've moved things, let's water them, let's give those roots a bit more of a perk up and be happy. So we've got those, and I also planted some rocket in my own time a couple of weeks ago. So I've got, I don't know whether you can tell in here, but these ones are actually reasonably well separated out. So I've got sort of 2 different plants at that end, that way, that I can separate, and I can put these in their own little spaces, because the rocket plants will be a sort of a little set of leaves coming up like that. So you can give them a sort of, probably actually a space like that sort of size to each rocket plant, so it grows quite nicely. So I'm actually just going to do the same sort of thing. I'm going to squeeze the tub there and just sort of ease those out. Is it going to come? Is it going to come? And I can use my little teaspoon on my dibbler if it's not looking like it's coming out. Now I can tell why it wasn't so easily coming out. So again, this is what I'm meaning by they're definitely wanting to be planted out by now. So we've got quite a lot of root growth there, and they're going to really appreciate going into a bit more soil. So again, I can split each of these off. So I can see I've got a separate seedling there at that side. I can just gently tease apart the roots there. So I've got a nice lot of roots with one plant. And then I can start making a little bit of a hole in my soil, and I can squish that in. So again, I've got two more plants here. I'm just going to tease those apart and make sure each one of them has a nice big set of roots to carry on growing. Roots are probably intermingled, but they're going to be okay. So again, planting these about sort of 7 or 8 centimetres apart, 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches apart, and we can squish those down. And then there's my last one. So I've got my 3 rocket plants sort of sat in their own little bit of space here. Each one of those has got a lot more space now to grow. So that was some of the mixed salad leaves that we planted originally, and some rocket. This one's further on than the rocket seed I planted directly in a tub last week. So this one is another week older, but my tub that is outside is obviously not going to sprout quite as fast as the ones that are on the windowsill and are lovely and warm inside. So I've now got the start of a planter there, and I can put that one straight outside. Again, if it was going to be frosty tonight, I might go, maybe I'll leave it a day. But it does sound like it's taking a turn for some nice weather coming up for the weekend here. So those should be very happy, sort of sat outside in the sunshine today, get lots of energy from the sun and start growing and putting their roots even further out and things like that. I did, of course, forget to water the rocket seedlings in there, so I have remembered that now, so my rocket seedlings are nice and happy. So what else am I going to need to do in the next couple of days? Well, if you remember my pea seedlings there, those ones are definitely starting to look like they're getting too big for that pot now. So I either need a bigger pot, sort of maybe a 20 centimetre sized pot, or maybe even bigger, a 30 centimetre sized pot for sort of 5 or 6 pea seedlings. But again, the thing to check is if you have got a see-through tub or you've got a pot, you might see the roots at the bottom here. And I can actually see a line across there, and that's one of the big roots trying to find its way out to go and find some more soil, something more nutritious to go and feed it and let it grow even bigger. So these ones definitely need potting on now. If I go back to my broad bean seeds, we've got exactly the same sort of going on here, in that these broad bean seedlings are doing really nicely. And again, a couple of these putting out a lot of roots at the bottom. So those will be very happy outside. Both the peas, early peas and broad beans are very happy outside right now. So they can go straight out in the garden later on today. And with some of these, yeah, you might find that the roots are all starting to go quite crazy. They're very good at sending down big tap roots. So particularly with with any of the bean seeds, actually, they do benefit from being in a long tube like this, and they really like sending roots down deep. So when you're going to plant these, plant them in a hole and give them lots more space at the bottom there so that they can put their roots down and they can be really happy. So, so those are my job for later on today. The ones that are only just starting to show here, you can put them out like that, but once they're a bit bigger, like these ones, they're going to be safer from insects and slugs and caterpillars and stuff like that. So I tend to leave them until they're at least that sort of size, and preferably that sort of size, before I put them out into the big wide world. Yeah, but they are happy. A lot of people do sort of plant broad bean seeds directly in the ground, and once it's a little bit warmer, like this week's warming up, the earth outside is actually warm enough to sort of go woof and start making those broad bean seeds realize that, yeah, it's spring, I can start growing, and these will romp away, and they'll probably give you a crop by the beginning of June. So with your earliest broad beans, you get a really good crop really nice and soon with those. And similar for the peas, they're going to do okay by sort of June time. You'll start getting some pea pods off those. Okay, so hopefully that's useful. Oh, Kate's joined us. She says that's very useful. Thank you. Thank you, Kate. So if you do have any other questions, do post it underneath this video. And if you've got pictures that you want to share of your seeds, very happy for you to post that underneath the video as well. And if you're following the Edible York page, we're hoping to get even more sort of seed swap locations listed so that you can go and find the next set of seeds to start planting. So we've got some radish out there at the moment, we've got tomato seeds out there, we've got peas and beans, and the ones coming up next, the ones to sort of plant that are listed, plant in April, are things like your runner beans and your broad beans. And those are great, nutritious things that you can plant. You can grow up a wall from a big pot. So those are great things to grow in your garden or even in your yard as well. So hope that was useful. Hope you have a lovely day and enjoy the sunshine outside on your daily walk, or if you've got a little bit of outside space, just sit there, let the sun touch your face, and it's really nice to see spring coming along with all these things growing. Okay, excellent. One question from Kate. Very good question, Kate. How do I stop cats using my newly prepared seed bed as a toilet? So this is one of those problems that does crop up, particularly in towns where you've got lots of cats around. They love a bit of fresh soil. It's ideal. It's just like a cat litter tray. So what we need to do is to make it less tempting for them to walk on the soil. So generally the recommendations are, if you've got any chicken wire or anything, you can just lay that on the top. But also, if you've got any cuttings, the green bins aren't being collected at the moment. So if you've got any sticks and things in your green bins, either stick them pointing upwards, sort of every 2 or 3 inches, so it's really hard for the cat to walk on. Or if even better, if you happen to have some brambles around, the old stems of brambles that are really spiky, cats hate those. So if you can lie some sticks over the top, or if you've just got a few sticks, just put them all pointing upwards, stick them in the soil. That'll just stop the cat easily being able to wander over and have a little squat and then dig up the soil. So hopefully that's a useful little trick. They do love a bit of freshly dug soil though. So yes, if you are putting your raised bed or your big pots outside, it might be worth just trying to cover them and put some sticks on top to stop the cats. Okay. Hopefully that was a nice little intro to potting on your plants. And again, if you've got any questions, do point them to Edible York. You might also want to join our York Edible Exchange. There's a whole lovely little friendly group there where you can share knowledge and you can share extra produce or extra seedlings if you've ended up with too